The crystalline dome of the Grand Assembly sparkled under the artificial light of 3 simulated suns, casting rainbow prisms across the polished obsidian floors. Marcus Whitfield adjusted his formal diplomatic sash, earth blue against stark black, and glanced down at Nova, his K9 diplomatic attaché. The German shepherd's intelligent eyes reflected the kaleidoscope of alien delegates filing into the chamber, her posture alert, but relaxed as she sat dutifully by his side. "Ready for another round of interstellar politics, girl?" Marcus whispered, his fingers briefly brushing the neural enhancement implant, partially hidden in Nova's thick fur. The dog's ears twitched, not in response to his words, but to the subtle changes in the chamber's atmosphere as the environmental systems adjusted to accommodate the diverse biological needs of the assembled species. 2 decades after achieving faster-than-light travel, humanity had finally secured a probationary seat in the Galactic Alliance. Marcus knew their position remained precarious. Earth was the newest member, still viewed with suspicion by many of the elder races who saw humans as impulsive, emotional, and dangerously unpredictable. The Proxima Resource Allocation Summit would be crucial for Earth's future standing. Access to rare minerals essential for expanding their fledgling interstellar infrastructure hung in the balance. As they approached their designated platform, Marcus noted the arrangement of the other delegates with a diplomat's practiced eye. The Meridians, with their phosphorescent skin and reputation for fair dealings, occupied the East Quadrant. The insectoid Turans had claimed the elevated platforms near the ceiling, their compound eyes gleaming. Various other species, some humanoid, others defying easy classification, filled the remaining spaces, creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. And then there were the Vularians. Ambassador Kraz and his junior diplomat Tri occupied a position of prominence directly opposite the Earth delegation. The Vularians' gray-scaled skin and prominent cranial ridges gave them a perpetually stern appearance. But Marcus had learned to read the subtle fluctuations in their gill-like neck flaps, currently pulsing with what he recognized as disdain. "Ambassador Whitfield," the universal translator rendered Kraz's clicking speech into smooth English, though it couldn't quite mask the underlying tone of condescension. "I see you've brought your pet again." Marcus smiled pleasantly, years of diplomatic training keeping his expression neutral. Diplomatic Attaché Nova is an official member of Earth's delegation, Ambassador Kraz, as we've previously discussed. Tri, the junior Vularian, made a sound that the translator didn't bother to interpret, but Marcus recognized as derisive laughter. "You humans and your obsession with lesser species. At least the Turan's insect colonies serve practical functions. This quadruped appears to do nothing but consume resources." Nova remained perfectly still, only the slightest flick of her ear indicating she had processed the insult. The enhanced canine understood every word through her neural implant, but she had been trained to maintain perfect composure in diplomatic settings. Marcus simply inclined his head, refusing to rise to the bait. "I believe High Chancellor Zilks is about to commence proceedings. Perhaps we should take our places." The Grand Assembly hummed with 1,000 conversations, in hundreds of languages, as the delegates settled. High Chancellor Zilks, a Praxian with luminescent tendrils that constantly shifted through spectral colors, hovered at the central podium, its voice resonating through the chamber as it called the summit to order. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Alliance, we gather to discuss the allocation of Proxima Centauri's mineral resources following the recent geological surveys. As per Protocol 17, each delegation will present their proposal, followed by questions and negotiations." Marcus felt a subtle pressure against his leg, Nova's way of communicating without drawing attention. He glanced down, noticing her eyes fixed on the Vularian delegation. Following her gaze, he observed Tri leaning close to Ambassador Kraz, gesturing subtly toward Earth's platform while speaking in hushed tones. The senior Vularian's neck flaps darkened, a sign of either amusement or anticipation. Marcus couldn't be sure which. The first hour of proceedings passed with typical alliance formality. The Meridian representative, Ambassador Luminara, presented a thoughtful proposal for equitable distribution based on developmental needs rather than existing power structures, a stance that would benefit Earth and other newer members. The Turan delegate countered with arguments for historical precedents, while representatives from a dozen other worlds offered variations between these positions. When Marcus's turn came, he stepped forward, Nova at his heel. "Esteemed members of the Alliance," he began, his voice clear and measured. "Earth proposes a graduated access model, acknowledging both the historical contributions of founding members while creating pathways for developing worlds to access critical resources needed for basic infrastructure and safety." He continued outlining the proposal, carefully crafted over months of consultation with Earth's finest economists, xenobiologists, and diplomatic strategists. Throughout his presentation, he noted with satisfaction the subtle nods of approval from several delegates, particularly from the Meridians and, surprisingly, from two of the elder races. But from the Vularian platform, Tri's expression grew increasingly sour. When the time for questions came, the junior diplomat was the first to activate his communication node. "Ambassador Whitfield," Tri's voice carried a silken menace. "Your proposal eloquently disguises Earth's attempt to gain preferential access to telium deposits. Perhaps it's escaped your notice that your species has only recently mastered technologies that the founding members perfected millennia ago. Why should the Alliance divert critical resources to a civilization that might well destroy itself before learning to use them properly?" A ripple of murmurs swept through the chamber. The question violated several protocols of diplomatic discourse, but stopped just short of triggering formal censure. Marcus waited a deliberate 3 seconds before responding, using the pause to settle his thoughts. The Alliance was founded on principles of mutual advancement. Junior Ambassador Tri, Earth doesn't seek preferential treatment, but rather a practical pathway that acknowledges our current developmental needs, no different than the accommodation provided to the Vularians during their early membership period, as recorded in the Founding Charters, Section 12, Paragraph 4. He smiled, allowing just a hint of steel to enter his voice. "I would be happy to provide you with a copy of those historical documents if they've somehow been misplaced in your delegation's archives." A collective intake of breath rippled through the assembly. Marcus had countered the insult with a subtle but clear implication that Tri was either ignorant of Alliance history or deliberately misrepresenting it. Nova, sensing the shift in the room's dynamics, remained perfectly still but alert, her eyes never leaving Tri. The Vularian's neck flaps darkened to an angry purple. "Perhaps," Tri hissed, "if humans spent less time anthropomorphizing lower life forms and more time studying galactic history, you wouldn't need to resort to creative interpretations of our founding documents." Before Marcus could respond, High Chancellor Zilks intervened, its tendrils flashing warning colors. "Junior Ambassador Tri, your comment strays from the resource allocation discussion. Ambassador Whitfield, please continue with your proposal's technical specifications." The remainder of Marcus's presentation proceeded without interruption, though he could feel Tri's glare burning into him throughout. When he concluded, Nova padded silently beside him, back to their platform, her body language revealing nothing to casual observers, but communicating volumes to Marcus through the subtle pressure against his leg. A warning that the confrontation wasn't over. The summit recessed for the mid-cycle break. Various delegates dispersed to their environmentally customized refreshment areas, the chamber temporarily dividing into a dozen different atmospheric zones to accommodate the diverse biological needs. Marcus headed toward the Earth-compatible section, Nova trotting at his side. They were intercepted by Ambassador Luminara, whose bioluminescent patterns shifted in what Marcus had learned to recognize as a friendly greeting. "Ambassador Whitfield, Your proposal shows remarkable insight for a species so new to our community, the Meridian said, her voice melodic through the translator. I particularly appreciated your emphasis on sustainability metrics. Thank you, Ambassador, Marcus replied with a slight bow, the customary Meridian acknowledgement. We've learned much from studying the success and failures of resource management throughout Earth's history. Luminara's gaze shifted to Nova, her head tilting with curiosity. Your companion is fascinating. We Meridians have symbiotic relationships with certain species on our homeworld, but none that accompany us in diplomatic functions. May I inquire about her role? Marcus smiled, genuinely this time. Nova is part of an elite program combining Earth's long tradition of working with canines and our newer neural enhancement technologies. She's trained in everything from threat assessment to cultural observation. Often, she notices subtle cues I might miss. As if on cue, Nova sat, her posture dignified but friendly. Luminara's skin rippled with patterns that indicated delight. Remarkable. The bond between your species is evident. The Meridian paused, her patterns shifting to concern. It seems Junior Ambassador Tri is approaching, and his biorhythms suggest agitation. Perhaps we should continue our conversation another time. Before Marcus could respond, Tri's voice cut through the ambient chatter of the refreshment area. Ambassador Whitfield, I was hoping to continue our intellectual exchange. Marcus turned slowly, maintaining his diplomatic composure, despite the obvious hostility radiating from the Vularian. Tri had brought along 2 colleagues, minor functionaries from allied worlds that typically supported Vularian positions. The junior ambassador was clutching a container of what Marcus recognized as fermented Vularian nectar, a potent intoxicant for their species, and one not typically consumed during formal proceedings. Junior ambassador, Marcus acknowledged with a slight nod. I believe High Chancellor Zilks has scheduled continued debate for after the recess. Tri made a dismissive gesture, sloshing some of his drink onto the floor. Formal proceedings are so restrictive. I thought we might speak more candidly here. His gaze dropped to Nova, who remained sitting calmly at Marcus's side. I remain curious about why humans insist on elevating mere animals to diplomatic status. Is your species so insecure that you require constant companionship, even in professional settings? Marcus noted the slight slur in Tri's speech. The universal translator compensated somewhat, but couldn't completely mask the effects of the Vularian intoxicant. He chose his words carefully, aware they now had an audience. As nearby delegates paused their conversations to observe the exchange, Earth's approach to interspecies cooperation has deep historical roots. Junior Ambassador, Nova's presence reflects both practical security considerations and our philosophical belief that intelligence manifests in diverse forms, worthy of respect regardless of its origin. Tri swayed slightly, his neck flaps pulsating with agitation. Philosophical platitudes. The truth is that humans can't bear to stand alone. You surround yourselves with subservient creatures because you fear your own inadequacy among truly advanced civilizations. The Vularian took an aggressive step forward, deliberately crowding into Marcus's personal space, a significant breach of diplomatic protocol. Nova remained seated, but her ears flattened slightly, the only visible sign of her heightened alertness. What real purpose does this creature serve? Does it advise you on quantum physics? Can it calculate hyperspace trajectories? Tri's voice rose, drawing more attention from surrounding delegates. Or does it simply provide emotional comfort when the grown-up species are discussing matters beyond human comprehension? Ambassador Kraz had noticed the confrontation and was moving toward them, his expression suggesting concern about his junior diplomat's behavior. But he was too far away to intervene before Tri continued his tirade. Your species is barely out of its planetary cradle, yet you presume to lecture founding members about resource allocation. Perhaps We should reconsider humanity's provisional status if this is the level of discourse you bring to the Alliance." Marcus maintained his composure, though he could feel a cold anger building. "Junior Ambassador, I believe you're overwrought. Perhaps we should continue this discussion after you've had time to refresh yourself." The diplomatic euphemism for Tri's intoxication wasn't lost on the surrounding delegates. A few chuckles rippled through the growing audience, and Tri's neck flaps darkened to a dangerous shade of purple-black. "You dare to patronize me?" the Vularian hissed, swaying more noticeably now. "Your primitive world was still burning fossil fuels while my ancestors were terraforming moons. Your delegation is an embarrassment to this assembly, and this," he gestured contemptuously toward Nova. "This animal is the embodiment of humanity's unfitness for Alliance membership." In a shocking breach of every diplomatic protocol, Tri suddenly lashed out with his foot, delivering a vicious kick to Nova's ribcage. The impact made a sickening sound that cut through the ambient noise of the refreshment area like a physical force. Nova yelped, a sharp, pained sound that echoed in the sudden, stunned silence that fell over the gathered delegates. She stumbled sideways, but maintained her footing, her training preventing her from either collapsing or retaliating despite the obvious pain. The entire refreshment area froze. Dozens of alien eyes turned toward the scene, expressions of shock, readable even across species barriers. Ambassador Kraz halted mid-stride, his neck flaps pale with horror at his junior's actions. Marcus felt a moment of pure, white-hot rage that threatened to overwhelm decades of diplomatic training. His hand twitched toward the ceremonial dagger all Earth ambassadors carried, a symbolic item never meant to be drawn. But suddenly, feeling very practical. But before he could move, he felt Nova lean against his leg, steady despite her injury, and the pressure brought him back to himself. He looked down and met her intelligent eyes, seeing not just pain, but understanding. Something passed between them in that moment, a communication deeper than words. Marcus straightened, his face settling into an expression of glacial calm that was far more terrifying than any display of anger could have been. "Junior Ambassador Tri," he said, his voice carrying easily in the silence. "You have just physically assaulted an official diplomatic representative of Earth." He paused, allowing the words to land with their full weight. "Under Alliance Charter, Article 7, this constitutes a Level 2 diplomatic incident." Tri seemed to suddenly realize the magnitude of his action, the intoxicated bravado draining from his face as he glanced around at the ring of horrified onlookers. Marcus continued, his tone measured but carrying an unmistakable edge of steel. "However, Earth will not be filing a formal grievance at this time." The statement caused murmurs of surprise throughout the gathered crowd. "Instead, we will simply withdraw from today's proceedings to attend to our injured delegate." He turned to Ambassador Kraz, who had finally reached them. "Ambassador, I trust you will address this matter internally within your delegation. Earth looks forward to resuming productive discussions, once appropriate adjustments have been made." Without waiting for a response, Marcus turned and walked calmly toward the exit, Nova limping slightly, but walking steadily beside him. Just before they reached the door, Marcus paused and looked back over his shoulder. "One final observation. Junior Ambassador," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the silent room. "You asked what purpose Nova serves in our delegation. Among other things, she evaluates character and assesses threats." His lips curved in a smile that never reached his eyes. "She identified you as both on our first day here." With that parting statement hanging in the air, Marcus and Nova departed, leaving behind a chamber buzzing with shocked conversations and a thoroughly humiliated Vularian junior ambassador. The journey back to the Earth Embassy section of the station was conducted in tense silence. Marcus walked slowly, matching his pace to Nova's careful gait, fury and concern warring within him. Only when they had passed through the biometric security scan and the doors had sealed behind them did he finally kneel beside his companion. "Let me see, girl," he murmured, gently running his hands along her ribcage. Nova whined softly as his fingers found the tender spot where Try's boot had connected. "We'll get you checked out properly, but I don't think anything's broken. Small mercies." The embassy's medical bay was designed primarily for human occupants, but it included specialized equipment for Nova, a recognition of her official status. Dr. Eleanor Hayes, the embassy's chief medical officer, looked up from her workstation as they entered, her expression immediately shifting to concern when she saw Nova's careful movement. "What happened?" she demanded, already reaching for a handheld scanner. "Diplomatic incident," Marcus replied tersely. Junior Ambassador Try decided to physically express his feelings about interspecies cooperation. Hayes's eyes widened. "He attacked Nova? In the middle of the summit?" She shook her head in disbelief while guiding the canine onto the specialized examination platform. "The Valerians always struck me as arrogant, but I thought they were too calculating for something so crude." "Intoxicated," Marcus explained, watching as the doctor ran the scanner carefully over Nova's side. "Valerian fermented nectar. Apparently, it doesn't improve their disposition." The doctor studied the scanner's results, her expression easing slightly. "No fractures, though she'll have significant bruising. The impact was distributed across 3 ribs, which is actually fortunate. Concentrated force might have caused a break." She prepared a small medical injector. "This will help with pain and inflammation. She should rest for the remainder of the day." Marcus nodded, some of his tension dissipating with the confirmation that Nova wasn't seriously injured. "We've withdrawn from today's session. I need to contact Earth Central for instructions on how to proceed." Hayes administered the injection with practiced efficiency, then gently stroked Nova's head. "I know the diplomatic implications are serious, but speaking personally, I hope you make them pay for this." Marcus's expression hardened momentarily. "That's not my decision to make." He glanced down at Nova, who was already looking more comfortable as the medication took effect. "Though I suspect this incident won't be forgotten quickly, one way or another." After ensuring Nova was settled comfortably in their quarters, Marcus established a secure communication link with Earth Central. The stern face of Director Harlow appeared on the screen, lines of concern deepening as Marcus reported the incident. "This is unprecedented," the director said when Marcus concluded his account. "A physical attack on a diplomatic representative, even a non-human one, violates core alliance principles. We could demand Try's immediate removal, possibly even sanctions against Valaria." Marcus considered this. "The political calculus is complicated. The Valerians have significant influence with the elder races, and we need their support, or at least their neutrality, for the Proxima resource negotiations." Harlow's expression was calculating. "What's your assessment of the room after the incident? How did other delegations react?" "Shock, mainly," Marcus replied. Even species traditionally allied with Valaria seemed appalled. Ambassador Kraz was clearly mortified by his junior's behavior. He paused, organizing his thoughts. "This could actually work in our favor if handled correctly. Our restrained response positions us as the mature, reasonable party." "Agreed," Harlow nodded slowly. "No formal grievance for now, but keep the option in reserve as leverage. How is Nova?" "Bruised, but not seriously injured. Dr. Hayes has her resting." "Good." Harlow's expression softened slightly. "I know she's more than just an asset to you. Marcus, give her my regards." His professional demeanor returned quickly. "I want you back in tomorrow's session. Both of you, if Nova is well enough. Show the Alliance that Earth doesn't retreat from adversity." "Understood, Director." After ending the communication, Marcus spent several hours reviewing reports and preparing for the next day's negotiations. Eventually, fatigue claimed him, and he settled into sleep on the couch beside Nova's cushioned bed, unwilling to leave her alone. In the early hours of the station's simulated morning, Marcus was awakened by an urgent notification from his communication panel. A message from Ambassador Luminara requested an immediate secure conversation. Intrigued, Marcus activated the channel, careful not to disturb Nova, who remained sleeping peacefully nearby. Luminara's bioluminescent patterns displayed concern when her image appeared. Ambassador Whitfield, I apologize for the early contact, but I thought you should be informed immediately. There's been an incident involving Junior Ambassador Tri. Marcus was instantly alert. What kind of incident? According to station security reports, Tri returned to his quarters after the recess yesterday and found all environmental systems malfunctioning. The temperature had increased to levels nearly intolerable for Valerian physiology, and the humidity was reduced to the point of causing respiratory distress. Marcus frowned. That sounds like a serious technical failure. Was he injured? No. Station engineering responded quickly. But this is where matters become curious. Luminara's patterns shifted to what Marcus recognized as the meridian equivalent of puzzlement. Engineering found no mechanical explanation for the malfunction. The system diagnostics showed all parameters within normal ranges, yet the actual conditions in the quarters were drastically different. A sensor malfunction, perhaps, Marcus suggested, though his diplomatic instincts were already sensing something more significant. That was the initial theory. However, when they attempted to access the environmental control logs, they discovered that the security protocols had been altered. Not bypassed or disabled. Altered in ways that the station's chief engineer described as elegant but utterly baffling. Luminara paused, her patterns indicating discomfort with what she was about to say. The modifications carried certain patterns that some security personnel associate with Earth programming methodologies. Marcus kept his expression neutral with practiced ease. That's a serious implication, Ambassador. Earth's delegation has neither the means nor motivation to access station systems, particularly not for something as petty as revenge. I'm simply relaying information I thought you should have. Ambassador Whitfield. Luminara replied carefully, particularly since there have been other incidents. Other incidents? Yes. Tri's communication system began transmitting an unusual low-frequency sound, apparently inaudible to most species, but particularly distressing to Valerian hearing. And this morning, he reported that his quarters gravity regulation fluctuated throughout his sleep cycle, causing significant discomfort. Luminara's patterns shifted again. In each case, diagnostics showed no systemic issues, yet the effects were undeniably real. Marcus allowed a small frown of concern to show. That's certainly troubling. Has Ambassador Kraz experienced similar problems? No, only Tri. Luminara's patterns briefly displayed what might have been amusement. Some delegates are beginning to whisper about karma. The universe does work in mysterious ways, Marcus replied diplomatically. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. Ambassador, please let me know if you hear of any further developments. After ending the communication, Marcus turned to find Nova awake, watching him with alert eyes. The canine's tail thumped once against her cushion in greeting. Feeling better this morning? He asked, moving to examine her injured side. Nova stood smoothly, showing only minimal stiffness. Excellent. We have an interesting day ahead, it seems. As Marcus prepared for the day's session, he couldn't help noticing that Nova seemed unusually focused on the embassy's computer terminal, her eyes tracking the scrolling data with particular intensity. Just coincidence, he told himself firmly, and absolutely nothing he intended to investigate too closely. The atmosphere in the Grand Assembly was noticeably different when Marcus and Nova entered for the day's session. Conversations hushed momentarily as delegates noticed their arrival, then resumed with increased intensity. Marcus acknowledged the subtle nods of respect from several delegates, including representatives from species that had previously kept their distance from Earth's ambassador. Nova walked beside him with only the slightest hint of stiffness in her gait, something noticeable only to those intimately familiar with her normal movement. As they took their position, Marcus scanned the chamber, noting that the Vularian platform remained conspicuously empty. Ambassador Luminara approached, her bioluminescent patterns displaying concern. Ambassador Whitfield, I'm pleased to see both you and diplomatic attaché Nova have returned. Her injuries are not severe, I hope. Nothing that won't heal quickly, thank you, Marcus replied with a respectful inclination of his head. I notice the Vularian delegation hasn't arrived yet. Luminara's patterns shifted subtly. Ambassador Kraz has requested a brief delay in proceedings. There have been complications with their station accommodations. High Chancellor Zilks has granted a half-cycle postponement. Before Marcus could respond, a ripple of attention spread through the chamber as Ambassador Kraz entered alone. His neck flaps pale with what appeared to be embarrassment or stress. The Vularian moved directly to the central podium, where High Chancellor Zilks hovered, engaged in brief communication, then proceeded to his delegation's platform, still alone. The High Chancellor's tendrils shimmered with formal announcement colors as it addressed the assembly. Esteemed delegates, before we resume our discussions of Proxima resource allocation, Ambassador Kraz wishes to address a procedural matter. Kraz stood, his posture rigid with formality. Esteemed members of the Alliance, I must inform you that Junior Ambassador Tri has been temporarily recalled to our homeworld for consultations. The Vularian delegation offers its sincere regrets for yesterday's unfortunate incident and wishes to assure Earth's representatives that such behavior contravenes our diplomatic principles and will be addressed appropriately. The carefully worded statement, neither a full apology nor an outright dismissal of the incident, was classic Vularian diplomacy. Marcus nodded acknowledgement, equally formal. Nova sat perfectly still beside him, only the slight tilt of her head indicating any reaction at all. As Kraz resumed his seat, Marcus observed the subtle reactions among the delegates, the Meridian's approval patterns, the Terran's antenna vibrations signaling interest, the elder race's careful neutrality. He allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Tree's removal, however temporary, represented a significant diplomatic victory for Earth. The day's negotiations proceeded with notably improved civility. Marcus found several delegations more receptive to Earth's proposals than previously, and by the session's end, a framework agreement was taking shape that incorporated key elements of his graduated access model. As delegates dispersed following the High Chancellor's adjournment, Ambassador Kraz approached the Earth platform. The Vularian's formal posture hadn't relaxed, but his neck flaps showed subtle color variations that Marcus had learned to interpret as discomfort. Ambassador Whitfield, Kraz began, his tone carefully modulated. I wish to convey personally my regret regarding yesterday's incident. Junior Ambassador Tree's actions were unbecoming of our diplomatic tradition and reflected neither Vularian policy nor personal sentiment toward Earth's delegation. Marcus inclined his head slightly. Your concern is noted, Ambassador. Earth understands that individuals sometimes act contrary to their government's intentions. Kraz's gaze shifted briefly to Nova, who sat watching the exchange with calm intelligence. I am relieved to see your companion appears recovered. Diplomatic attaché Nova is resilient, Marcus replied, deliberately emphasizing her official title. We look forward to continuing productive negotiations without further incidents. The Vularian hesitated, then lowered his voice. There is a delicate matter I hope to discuss. Station security has reported unusual technical malfunctions affecting TRI's quarters and systems. Some have suggested patterns consistent with Earth technologies. He paused, watching Marcus carefully. I trust Earth's delegation would have no knowledge of such matters. Marcus maintained perfect diplomatic composure. Ambassador Kraz, Earth's delegation focuses solely on advancing mutual understanding and cooperation within the Alliance. We have neither expertise in station systems nor interest in technical disruptions that might impede our shared diplomatic goals. It wasn't exactly a denial, and both diplomats knew it. Kraz studied Marcus for a long moment, then shifted his attention to Nova, who met his gaze with calm assurance. Indeed, the Vularian finally said. Perhaps some mysteries are best left unexplored. Until tomorrow's session. Ambassador. As Kraz departed, Marcus glanced down at Nova, who looked back at him with what could only be described as innocent attention. Let's head back to our quarters, he said conversationally. I believe we both deserve some rest after a productive day. The remaining days of the Proxima Summit passed without significant incident. The temporary absence of Junior Ambassador Tree seemed to improve the overall diplomatic atmosphere, allowing substantive progress on resource allocation frameworks. Earth's proposals gained surprising traction, particularly after receiving endorsement from the Meridian delegation and qualified support from 2 elder species. Throughout the proceedings, Nova remained at Marcus's side, her behavior impeccably professional, though Marcus occasionally caught her watching the station's environmental control panels with what seemed like unusual interest. He carefully avoided asking questions he didn't want answered. On the final day of negotiations, as delegates prepared to formalize the Proxima Accord, Ambassador Kraz approached Marcus during a brief recess. Your proposals have been unexpectedly persuasive, Ambassador Whitfield. The Vularian acknowledged, his tone suggesting reluctant respect. Vularia finds the final framework acceptable, though we maintain reservations about the accelerated access provisions for developing worlds. Compromise is the essence of diplomacy, Marcus replied with a slight smile. Earth appreciates Vularia's flexibility in these negotiations. Kraz's neck flaps pulsed with what might have been wry amusement. Indeed, flexibility has proven important in recent days. He glanced down at Nova, who sat attentively beside Marcus. Your companion has made quite an impression on many delegates. Several have inquired about Earth's neural enhancement technologies and interspecies cooperation methodologies. We would be pleased to share our experiences, Marcus offered. Earth has found that intelligence and loyalty manifest in many forms, all worthy of respect. The Vularian studied Nova with newfound consideration. A perspective worth reflection. Incidentally, Junior Ambassador Tree's reassignment has been extended indefinitely. He has developed an unusual neurological condition, an inexplicable anxiety response triggered by environmental control systems and electronic interfaces. Kraz's neck flaps darkened slightly. Most peculiar. Our medical specialists are quite baffled. Marcus maintained a perfectly neutral expression. How unfortunate. Please convey Earth's wishes for his recovery. I shall, Kraz replied, though his tone suggested he doubted the sincerity of the sentiment. One final observation. Ambassador Whitfield. It appears we may have underestimated certain aspects of Earth's delegation, a miscalculation that Vularia will not repeat. With that cryptic statement, the Vularian inclined his head in formal acknowledgement and returned to his platform as the High Chancellor called the assembly back to order. Later that evening, as Marcus and Nova returned to their quarters following the successful conclusion of the summit, he finally allowed himself to address the unspoken subject that had hovered between them for days. Interesting outcomes all around, he remarked casually, securing the door and disabling the embassy's routine surveillance, as was his habit during private reflections. Earth gained favorable resource access, diplomatic standing, and apparently a reputation for sophisticated technical capabilities we don't officially possess. Nova watched him with intelligent eyes, her head tilted attentively. Hypothetically speaking, Marcus continued, kneeling to examine her side, which now showed barely any sign of injury. If someone were to access station systems to deliver a certain poetic justice, they would need to be extremely careful to leave no traceable evidence. He paused, meeting Nova's gaze directly. Hypothetically, such actions might involve risks disproportionate to the satisfaction of seeing a diplomatic bully experience some discomfort, no matter how richly deserved. Nova maintained her attentive posture, offering no confirmation or denial, not that any was needed. The enhanced canine's neural implants gave her computational abilities that few outside Earth's program fully understood, including interfaces designed for emergency access to standard systems. Capabilities mentioned in technical specifications, but considered largely theoretical by most Alliance members. Marcus sighed, stroking her head affectionately. Just between us, I would hypothetically suggest that any such activities have made their point and should now cease entirely. Earth needs allies, not enemies, even temporarily humbled ones. Nova responded by licking his hand once, then settling comfortably on her cushion. The very picture of canine innocence. Marcus smiled despite himself. 2 decades after achieving faster-than-light travel, humanity had secured not just a seat at the galactic table, but a new understanding among the Alliance species. Perhaps not respect, not yet, but certainly a re-evaluation of the newest members' capabilities and the wisdom of underestimating them. And a particular re-evaluation of the quiet, 4-legged diplomatic attaché who observed everything, said nothing, and, apparently, forgot nothing. As Marcus prepared his final report to Earth Central, he included only the official diplomatic outcomes, saying nothing of environmental malfunctions or mysterious technical incidents. Some details, he decided, were best left to rumor and speculation among the Alliance delegates. The message would spread regardless. They kicked the human's dog. The human didn't need to retaliate. The dog did,